I'd like to show you how to take your weaving off of the cardboard loom the really easy way. Now I have another way posted on my channel here that shows you the safe way, because there's always a risk whenever you take the weaving off of your cardboard loom that it will unravel. And if you have limited time, then I would suggest doing it the way that my other video shows. But sometimes I find that students have a little difficulty understanding those directions. So I'm going to show you another way that's really simple and easy. Just make sure that you have enough time to completely do this whole process. All right, so here is a weaving that is finished. And I just want to mention that if you have raya knots, make sure that under the raya knots you have woven back and forth regularly a few times. Otherwise your raya knots are going to fall off. So we don't want that to happen. So just make sure that you've done that. The first step we're going to do in this easy way is to turn this over on the back. And for my students, I always have them tie this in the back. That way this whole thing doesn't unravel as they're weaving. Some teachers have their students tape it. So the idea here is to take this and lay it off to the side. So the first thing I'm going to do here is cut the knot off. And you can see that cut that diagonal string in half. And then I'm just going to cut right down through the center of my warp strings. So just cut right down through the very center. All right. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay these warp strings out to the side. And you want to make sure that they come out of the little notches here. And then I like to just kind of straighten them out here. That'll help you later. And the same thing over here. Just lay them out and smooth them and make sure that they're out of the notches. And that allows you just to pick this up and take it off. And you might have noticed on the other side, you saw that I had tape. And that's why, because our names were on the back of the cardboard. And once we take the cardboard off, you need to have your name on it somehow. Okay, so at this point, I need to go ahead and tie every 2 strings together in sets. It doesn't really matter which side you start with, so whichever side you're more comfortable with, you're going to just first take the first 2, and you're going to tie this in not just one knot, but in a double knot. So I tied it twice. Not in a bow, but in a double knot. And then I like to put this up and out of the way so I know which 2 to do next. So I'll find the very next 2 and I'll tie those together. 1, 2. Put those up. Next 2. 1, 2. I'm just going to continue to do that until I get to the end. Now you'll notice when I get to the end, sometimes what will happen, it depends on how many warp strings you had, but I'll have 3 instead of 2 sets of 2. So I'm going to go ahead and tie these 2 together like I normally would. But then I can't leave that last string just hanging there, not tied to anything. So you have to tie that, even though this has been tied to this other string, I'm going to take it and I'm going to tie it to that last string, because every string has to be tied to something else. These knots are what keeps the weaving together. So you can see all these have been tied in sets of 2, except for the last one in a set of 3. So this side of the weaving is safe. It's not going to fall apart. So notice I did not pick this up. So please do not pick this up. The more you handle it, the more of a chance you have in it unraveling. So now I'm going to do this side. I'll find my first two. And I'll do the exact same thing that I did on the other side. I'm just going to tie them together in sets of 2 and put them up so that I know those are already tied. Again, I'm left with a set of 3. So I'll tie these first 2, and then I'll take that last string, that last warp string, and I'll tie it to one of these. So I'll just tie this last one to one of these. Now this side, I'm just going to check to make sure that all of the knots are tied in a double knot, not just a single one. That'll come apart. You need a double knot. And I'm just going to double check this side again and make sure those are all tied. So at this point, I can turn it over and see what it looks like. Now I'm just going to leave this like this because in another video, I show you how to add the dowel rod to this. So I can show you how to do that, but I need those to stay long so that it gives me enough space that I can easily tie those. If I cut them really short, it's going to be really hard to tie my dowel rod on. So I'll show you that later. Now this side, because I have some raya here, that's already kind of fringe, but oftentimes I'll just leave this as fringe. Now this might be a little bit long, especially with the raya here. So I'm just going to cut this a little shorter. Now I don't want to cut it right next to the knot. If you do that too many times, the knot comes out and then there is no way to tie it again and your weaving unravels. So I would never cut this any shorter than about 1 inch or 2. So I'm just going to cut this a little bit shorter, but you can see I've still left 1 inch or 2. Now, if you did not have raya on the front, this is going to be for a wall hanging. But if you didn't have raya and you just want this to be a big pot holder, of course you could cut this side with the shorter warp strings as well. But like I said, for this one, I'm going to make this into a wall hanging. So I'm going to just leave this long like this so that I have plenty of string left so that I can tie my dowel rod on there or whatever you're using to hang it with. It could be a stick. You can use all kinds of things. I'll show you that later, but let's think, for instance, if your weaving was not the whole length of the loom, if it just went, you know, halfway or so, when you take those warp strings off and you lay them out, the one side will be fine, the top will be fine, and you can just leave those that length, but look how long the bottom is. That's going to be really difficult to tie. So I would suggest in this case that maybe cut them to about the length of your hand. So that's going to be right about there. And that's going to be a lot easier to tie. And that was about the length of this side over here. So I cut both sides about the same length. And that's just going to make it a lot easier to tie. And again, I would go through that exact same process that I went through with the other weaving. Now, and one more thing I want to show you. I don't do this very often in my classes, but if you're watching this video and you ever want to know how to actually hide these warp strings, it's pretty easy to do. You just need a needle, and I'm just going to find right here where my yarn goes over one of my warp strings, near where the string is that I want to hide, and I'm going to just put my needle right through the center. And this is what this is going to do, is it's going to hide this. All right, and I'll push my needle out. Now, I pushed it in about as long as the string, so the string, when I pull it through, is going to be hidden. In order to know if it's going to be hidden on the other side, you shouldn't be able to see your needle on this side either. So I've just put my needle right along my warp string there. And then I'm going to take the strings that are there and put them through the eye of my needle. So you can see I didn't put the eye through my weaving, I just put the needle part. And then once I have my strings through the eye that are all tied together, then I'm going to pull this through, and this pulls those up into your weaving. All right, now for this, I'm using a student example, so I'm not going to actually pull it the whole way through because I want this person to be able to have their fringe at the bottom. But if I would pull this, you can see what's happening here. This is going to be disappearing up into the weaving, and you'll pull your needle out and everything will be hidden. And that's just a really nice way to hide those warp strings. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time and show you that, and just kind of talk a little bit about that easy way of taking the weaving off the loom. So you can see it was a lot simpler than the other way if you've watched my other video, but you do run the danger of having your weaving fall apart, because anytime it's laying out like this and it's not tied, you run the risk of your weaving falling apart. So again, do not pick it up, just lay it out, tie two at a time, and don't leave any of your warp strings untied. If you end up with an extra one, then just tie it to something next to it. All right, I'm going to let you go now so you can try this for yourself.